Hi, students. I would like to talk to you a little bit about organization of the exploratory essay. This is your instructor, Jennifer Atkins-Gordeeva. Um, you have prepared for your exploratory essay. You've read, you've watched informed opinions, you read at least 5 sources. They included Dweck, the Test Your Mindset quiz, Gladwell, Teska, Teller, Alaska, etc. And so the authors made claims of their own and talked about subjects that were related to fixed and growth mindsets or to success and failure. And some of them addressed your percolating question directly. When you refer to their ideas, you might talk to them, refer to them as direct quotes or paraphrases, and you're going to acknowledge them in 2 places. For instance, you might say, Dweck says, or according to Dweck, or you might offer a paraphrase, and it would appear somewhat like these items. Dweck says, and then you have a quote, and then you have a page number, and then you have a period. Or you have a paraphrase of an idea that was explained on page 4 of Dweck, and then you have Dweck 4. And you have to include that in the works cited page. We'll be reviewing that kind of stuff later on. I prefer to think of this conversation that you've been having as something bigger than you. It's not just you writing about Dweck. It's not just Dweck writing about fixed and growth mindsets and other people writing about fixed and growth mindsets. They're all essentially having a conversation. They're all essentially talking about ways to do the right thing, to make the best plans in the world. You get to decide as a person, as a human, how you're going to be. And you get to decide if you're going to embrace a growth mindset or if you are going to acknowledge that you have a fixed mindset and work with that. Or if you're going to grow outside of a fixed mindset, if you're going to pursue success, how might you go about doing that? So all of these things are part of your inner path as a student, as a human in the world, whatever. And you're not just doing this inside of a vacuum. Dweck is talking about this stuff. Gladwell's talking about this stuff. Mindset Works is talking about this stuff. Teller's talking about it. Alaska's talking about it. Gladwell's talking about it. Really, you're having a conversation. You're having a conversation between your own Justice League, your own source heroes, Dweck, Gladwell, Alaska, Teller, etc., and yourself. You have now read several authors who offer their own informed opinions. You've summarized and responded to them, and I hope that you're employing dialectic thinking. You could think of it as a face-off, but not like a terribly epic battle. More like a conversation in which you might not always completely and totally agree. Kind of like versus, Batman versus Superman. But when we say versus, we really mean that 2 people, you and a peer, you and an author, 2 authors, 2 of your source heroes, Superman and Batman, either agree, disagree, or agree with a difference. It's not an epic battle. It's much less exciting than that. Here we see Batman and Superman not having a conversation about fixed growth mindsets and fixed or growth mindsets or success and failure. Instead, they're having a conversation about social media. Superman says, social media has caused a major change in the way we communicate, and we should be concerned. Batman says, we all agree that social media is part of a way we are changing communication. However, I'm not sure social media's direct cause for change. They're on their own path, having their own little conversation. Your source heroes have a conversation about your stuff. But I need you to remember this. You read the Banks piece not to understand immigration. You read the Banks piece to understand the organization of an exploratory essay. And you can use the Banks piece and adjust it to your own needs. Your first paragraph will have an introduction that offers context. Your second paragraph has background information leading to a main idea, concluding with your percolating question. Examples of the percolating question might include, how do I embrace a growth mindset? What are the benefits of a growth mindset? What are the benefits of a fixed mindset? If a growth mindset is preferred, then why is it so hard for people to achieve? Or how can we plan for success? What can I do with failure? What is the importance of failure? Any of those might be percolating questions for you. And so your third paragraph begins. My search began with test your mindset, a quiz that my instructor assigned to the whole class. Then you might summarize, test your mindset, include the main point, include your results, etc. I've made a little bit of a note here that you can read. If you weren't doing test your mindset at the beginning, you would instead summarize an entire source, and you would include the main point and other points relating somewhat to the percolating question. And then you would respond to the source in paragraph 4. But if you're starting with a quiz for paragraph 3, then you really aren't going to need to have a response as a separate paragraph. But then you continue, like Banks did, paragraph 5, or 4 in your case. My search continued with Even Geniuses Work Hard, written by educational psychologist Carol Dweck. And then you offer a summary of that source, including the main point and other points that somewhat relate to the percolating question. And then you respond to it. You might either be responding with you versus Dweck, or test your mindset results versus Dweck, or a combination. And you continue the conversation. You're hosting a conversation on your essay, the same way that I am hosting a conversation between Superman and Batman right now about social media. Look at it, they're still going on. They're crazy. And your essay will continue. You're going to summarize your third source and respond to your third source. And that response to the third source might be you responding to the third source, or the first source responding, test your mindset quiz responding to the third source, or the second source responding to the third source, a combination. And then you summarize the fourth source. And again, you respond to that fourth source. It can be you versus the fourth source, the first text versus the fourth source, the second text versus the fourth source, etc. And then you summarize the fifth source and respond to the fifth source, and so forth. And you conclude with a summary of the argument, and most importantly, you include with your final claim. Now you may be asking, what's a claim? What does she mean by this? Well, I really mean a thesis statement. A claim is often called a thesis statement. A claim must be a statement. It must contain the summation of your argument. It cannot be a question. It must be debatable. And in most essays, it's backed by evidence that follows. But in this essay, the evidence has preceded the statement. Remember, in the exploratory essay, your claim, your thesis statement is at the end. In this essay, your claim is the answer to your percolating question, or an answer to the way that the question has evolved. I hope that this helps. We're going to pause just a moment, and then I'm going to talk to you about dialectic thinking. We're back. So I want to talk to you a little bit about dialectic thinking. I have a small graphic organizer that I've included in your folder, and I want you to be able to use it to help you consider dialectic thinking. I want you to think about it as a way of doing that comparison between two authors. So in the case of Superman and Batman, we might say, what would Superman say to Batman? And so you would say, after I read Superman, I thought, and however, after I read Batman, my thinking on this issue changed in these ways. Of course, you're not going to be talking about Superman and Batman. You're going to be talking about perhaps Dweck and Kerp, or Gladwell, and Teller. And you're going to be taking writer A and writer B of your choice and thinking, oh, well, how do I compare them? You can use the front page of the graphic organizer to think, how do they disagree about facts and interpretations of facts? And where do they have shared values, assumptions? What new significant questions do these texts raise for you? These are ways that writing this out is a way of thinking through the comparison between two authors. Now, alternately, or in addition, you would flip to the other side and you can use that space to compare and contrast writers' work. So sometimes students will take writer A and writer B, and they'll make a list. They'll write about the things that writer A says and the things that writer B says, so they can compare them back and forth right in front of each other as a list. Sometimes students will write it though it's a text conversation. So writer A will have a text note here, writer B will have a text note, writer A another text note, writer B another text note. A way of kind of going back and forth, really imagining that conversation. And sometimes students will just like flat out draw some stick figures, a cartoon, something that will help them visualize the actual conversation that's going on between two of their sources or source heroes in our case. Now, at the bottom of the stomach of the graphic tool, you can compose a paragraph in which you write out those ideas. And this paragraph can actually be something that you use inside of your rough draft. It can be really, really helpful for you. So I want to encourage you to play with that. You don't have to have this inside of your rough draft. It is highly desirable for you to have it inside of your polished draft. Have some kind of dialectic thinking in which you are taking two authors and talking about them really in the same paragraph, comparing and contrasting their work. I hope that this has helped, and I hope that this helps answer any other of your questions regarding the exploratory essay. Let me know if you have any additional questions. Thank you.